No matter which way you look at it, today marks a huge victory for the LGBT community after India's Supreme Court has decriminalized gay sex in the country and consigned Section 377 to history's dustbin, where it hopefully will remain forever. The five-judge bench, headed by Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra, unanimously legalized gay sex, ending the 157-year-old colonial law. The Chief Justice of India said that the right to love anyone is an individual choice and that the LGBT community has rights like every other Indian citizen. Reading out the historic judgment, the Chief Justice of India also said that popular sentiments cannot dictate constitutional rights. The Supreme Court has also ordered a relook into all pending cases related to Section 377, making it clear that there is absolutely no place for homophobia in India. Meanwhile, the right-wing group RSS backed Supreme Court's judgment on the 377. However, it refused to accept same-sex relations, believing to be against Indian culture. That has been a long-standing stance of the RSS as well as several other entities in the country. All right, joining me, it's a great privilege for us this evening on 5 Live to have a gallery of voices, a gallery of experiences under the cloud of Section 377. Zainab Patel is a transgender rights activist and Nalsa case petitioner. Joining us live from Chennai also is Rose Venkatesan, who's a trans woman and TV host. With me here in our studios in the national capital, it's our privilege and honor to have with us Shambhavi Saxena, a writer at Youth Ki Awaaz and an LGBT activist. Shubhankar Verma, who's a student and an LGBT activist. Ankit Gupta, who's a colleague of mine here at India Today. And Pratik, better known as Better Non-Stop, who's also with us, prominently seen across channels today, and we're very happy to have all of these people here with us in the studio. Better, I want to start with you first, because let's never forget, it's a time of celebration today. It's a time to be happy that something that is so sickening and 157 years old has been consigned to the dustbin. I'm personally ashamed that this didn't happen earlier. I want you to tell us about your experiences under the cloud of 377, because people on the outside of the community can never imagine what it is like. Give us your experience. Tell us something personal.
Well, to start with, I work as a drag queen.
Yeah.
And anyone who sees any drag queen, they automatically associate us with the LGBT community, which is not necessary. A lot of straight people interested, show their interest in drag as well. So for us to, perform here, we just entertainers. So, but again, Section 377 was there. We were not getting hired. So that's a very personal direct effect that was on me. But on the other hand, socially, because the law does not back us, now it does, thankfully.
No, have there been instances where you've tried to get work as a drag queen, as a performer, as an entertainer, and have had, places say, because of 377, we're nervous about doing this? Has that actually happened?
Not directly. Nobody would actually address that directly and tell you.
But that's the insinuation.
You understand. You get the idea that you're not required over here.
Absolutely. Shubhankar, you're a student. And I heard a little bit about your story from the person who connected us. How difficult was it, with your parents, with your teachers, with your friends, and this whole umbrella of Section 377 that basically made all of you criminals?
I mean, of course, I was never at the receiving end of this section explicitly, but of course, the discrimination behind it, it manifested itself in a lot of different ways.
Because, I want to actually clarify that. Many persons may not have been direct victims of the law itself. It's not like people were thrown in jail or punished or dragged off by the police, but it provided a legal basis for the discrimination. It in many ways validated the discrimination, right?
It's been a base for a lot of ignorance from a lot of people. So when I personally came out to my loved ones, it was in 2013 January. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And my parents at the time were quite uninformed. Now, I can't blame them for being uninformed because, of course, they haven't had access to education and, let's say, the internet as we have.
Yes.
So the amount of inclusion that we've learned and the amount of education that we've adapted, it's because of the access that we've had. So when I came out to my loved ones, it wasn't a smooth ride, unsurprisingly.
Yeah. How long ago was this?
It was in 2013.
Okay.
So it's been 5 years. So initially there was a lot of disapproval, and I was asked if I wanted to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, which didn't really make sense because for obvious reasons it's not a mental disorder anymore.
Yeah.
It was never a mental disorder, but for example, there's been a recent progression when it comes to the manual for mental health disorders for transgender people.
Yes.
So transgender people during transition go through a process which is called wherein they're an incongruence there's an incongruence between their gender identity and the gender that they were prescribed at birth. So for the longest time, it was referred to as a psychological disorder.
But what has life been like since 2013? You told your parents at that time. Are they, have they come on board? Are they okay with it? Is it still difficult? What's it like now? It's been 5 years.
Yeah, so they've definitely come around. They've done their homework, but it's still not something that we explicitly and openly talk about. It's still relatively under the rugs.
It's still under the rugs. Ankit, before I go to Shambhavi and our guests in Chennai as well, Ankit, what's it been like? I saw your tweet today where you said, finally no longer a criminal. Which in many ways is the essence of what today's judgment is about.
It absolutely is, Shiv. I'll tell you something very simple. I come from a position of privilege.
Yeah.
So I may not have had, I have not...
That's an important point, yeah.
I come from a position of privilege. I've had a certain education. My parents are at a certain class in society. It's been easy for me. But I would say this, it's the small things, it's the water cooler jokes, it's the bullies in school who think it is their right to bully you because they can, and you can't say anything. It's almost like death by 1,000 paper cuts. So for me, it has been like that. You live with it, you deal with it, you ignore it. Largely, you don't say anything about it. You push back where you think you can, but you know that you can't actually say anything. That is how it has been. At the same time, I have been reporting about this for a very long time.
Yes.
And I have seen cases of people who've gone through immense trauma, like Arif Jafar in 2001. He was picked up at 2 a.m. from his residence, branded a sex worker for 47 days, put in jail and tortured to the extent he wasn't even given drinking water. He drank from the drain of the jail.
Yeah.
And he got so many diseases as a result.
So there is a real edge to this law. There is a real edge.
There is. I mean, let's not forget Professor Saras.
Yeah.
He committed suicide.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it is ridiculous that someone has to take their own life just to be who they are.
Shambhavi, what has been your experience with the law? I mean, we've basically seen that there is both sides. There's prejudice, which you see head first, head on. And there are also these very scary incidents where people have been dragged away. Obviously, there are many kinds of incidents in between these as well. What has been your experience? Tell us a little bit more.
So speaking primarily from a position of privilege, I think all of us are coming from that. We haven't faced that brutal an attack on us because of who we are. But like Ankit said, it's these tiny things. And for me personally, if I were to describe my experience of marginalization, it is through erasure. It is through not having a person like me on TV, not having anyone in a book that I read, who's like me or cares about the things I care about or has the issues that I have.
Without being caricatured.
Without being caricatured. Sure, we've got loads of these caricatures, but that's not helpful at all. And because I'm in the business of writing, of storytelling, that is literally the only way that I can represent my own story. And that's true for so many queer people in the country.
No, this is very interesting when you talk about, injury by 1,000 cuts, because it may not be just one incident. It may be things said by people, by colleagues, by friends. I have to admit, I am sure even I have said things without, even realizing that I'm being prejudiced in that sense. I like to think that I'm completely open, and I have no prejudices. I'm certainly not homophobic, but I start to wonder sometimes about whether I have said certain things, even to Ankit. Ankit works with me. Have I said things, that, have been completely inappropriate or, against what, being good is really all about? I want to bring in Zainab and Rose now. Zainab, to you first. As we exchange all of these stories, isn't it important, Zainab, for us to remember that all of these experiences it's important for us never to forget them, and that people from the LGBT community and the activists who fought against Section 377 will never forget the horrors of what this law has made possible?
Definitely. You know, I'm going to take a few steps back, right, from what Ankit mentioned about the year 2000 and 2001, when Arif Zafar was arrested in Lucknow. The repercussions were seen all across the country. You know, coming from the community, coming from the field, working in HIV activism for the last 18 years, you've seen people live this horror day in and day out. What does it mean for people on the ground? Let me give you a few examples.
Yeah.
People necessarily do not get arrested under Section 377 because you have to corroborate it with medical evidence. You have to, you know, but what the police do is they use relevant sections of police acts in various cities, whether it's Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, etc. They use it to intimidate people who are same-sex attracted, or towards trans people. They use provisions of anticipated violence about creating nuisance in society. So what is happening is, on the ground, people continue to be driven underground, not giving them access to relevant information. Forget the issue about, you know, living a decriminalized life. Even getting access to services is prejudiced. When you go to a doctor, when you go to a counselor seeking for information, it took us 15 years of the HIV epidemic to even convince people to give non-discriminatory access to information and services.
Yes.
So you are talking about, it took us 72 years of India's independence from the British to finally break the yoke and require a civil society-led voice. You know, please realize that it is one of the, and other than from the transgender victory that we had in 2014, it is the youngest civil rights movement and breaking free the shackles for one of the longest marginalized communities in this country.
Yes.
We are talking about community people who committed suicide, who are not able to be in stable relationships because of the fear of law, because of repercussions of the society, because of non-acceptance. So these are the stories you need to remember, and not only you, it's not only the responsibilities on the media, but to take it to the lawmakers, to take it to the judiciary, take it to the police, because we want to see amendments in criminal law to reflect this change. Just decriminalizing Section 377 among private consenting adults is not enough.
Yeah.
We need protection under the law for precisely the same reason, to ensure that every single day now on, LGBT community people feel protected.
Yes.
You know, if you remember the first principle of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says all people are born free in right and dignity. I think when it comes to right and dignity, we now have this opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I believe, you know, when Justice Shah in the 2009 judgment said, the court doesn't confer right, it only confirms them.
You know, Zainab, I'm going to come to that point in just a bit, where I'm going to take answers from all of you on the issue of what comes next. I think you've raised an enormously important point, because scrapping Section 377 is one tiny step. I mean, there's a huge mountain of prejudice that still needs to be dealt with in this country. There are issues of you know, public morality. There are agencies that continue to you know, look at you know, LGBT members of the LGBT community as deviants. Rose, share something with us. You know, you've been a very prominent voice as well. But, you know, the stories that nobody ever hears are the real experiences of people like you. Rose, tell us a little bit more about what your experience has been with Section 377, if any.
So, let's go back a few years. So, it was about 2005 or 6. I don't remember the exact year. So, I was riding on my scooter, and I happened to meet a gay friend of mine. So we were both taken to the nearest police station, and that person, I don't know what that person did, okay? Apparently under the impression that he had homosexual sex, and I just happened to meet him on the roadside just to speak to him because he was a friend of mine. So I just met him and I was talking to him. I gave him a ride, and I stopped at a certain point. Okay, and he did something in between. I don't know what he did. But then suddenly there was a police van that took us both into the, police van, and we were taken to the police station. And I was made to sit in the police station throughout the night. And it was about 2 a.m. when the cops called my family, and my father had to come and report to the police station. And my father had to pay a bribe of 500 rupees, and still I was not let go.
Amazing.
And no case was booked. I was just kept in the police station through the night. I lost my sleep. On top of that, every policeman that walked into the police station would come to me and, inappropriately look at me or touch me or ask for my number.
I can picture that.
Or tell me to... Or tell me to give sexual favors, and all this nonsense happened. I didn't have too many encounters with Section 377, but I didn't commit a crime. Was it a crime to ride the scooter in the night? Was it a crime to talk to an openly gay person? Was it a crime to give a ride to an openly gay person? Was it a crime? I don't know what crime that person did, but I was taken along with that. And it's a very negative experience, because you asked about negative experiences that I had with Section 377, so I brought it up. I had very few of them. In fact, I had only 1 or 2 of them. So I'm bringing this up openly to the Indian public for them to realize how this law can be misused by the administrators and the law enforcers.
Absolutely.
That's my bad experience.
Absolutely. I mean, and it is experiences like these that people usually never hear about, and they're usually tucked away because of how traumatic they really are. So I'm actually very glad that we're able to showcase all of these. Before I come to you all for that next question on that big mountain of prejudice, that is really India's challenge. Section 377, while it is legitimate that we celebrate today, that next big mission is really what India's big challenge is. We've got some breaking news on this story coming in right now. Okay, India today has now learned that the Supreme Court has left this decision. The government had left the decision on Section 377 of the Supreme Court, and the government did not oppose the plea of the petitioners. However, the government is opposed. The government is opposed to same-sex marriage, and sources suggest the government will oppose any plea to make same-sex marriage legal in this country. Our National Affairs editor, Rahul Srivastav, with us on the phone line. So Rahul, the government apparently sources telling you that it will not permit, or it will oppose any pleas for same-sex marriage in the country.
Yes, Shiv. What the government sources are saying, that when it came to Article 377 and what is a constitutional right of a person cannot be denied, on that the government took a position and did not oppose it, and left it to the wisdom of the Supreme Court, which eventually has acted and decriminalized same-sex. Now, the issue here remains is that perhaps the next frontier is the marriage of the same people among the same sex. That's where the government says that the national opinion is extremely divided, and that extremely divided opinion, in that position, the government cannot support any move on any petition as far as the same-sex marriages are concerned.
Yes.
And that is why right now the government's position is that same-sex marriages, if its petition is filed in the courts, the government will be opposing that position.
Okay, the government will be opposing that position. Interesting, not entirely unexpected, but I think, Rahul, thanks very much for getting us that breaking piece of information. Beta, doesn't this basically, just put the spotlight on the same question that I was asking, that Section 377 is one small part of the problem that's been done away with now. Any right-thinking individual would think that if Section 377 is gone and homosexuality is not a criminal act, then, same-sex marriage should logically be permitted as well, but clearly not. What do you think?
I think what we have achieved today is calling it a small step is not fair. It is a huge step towards a better world. But
compared to what?
Compared to what's next? Yeah. What's next is workplace discrimination and same-sex marriage, which we have to address that somewhere or the other. And this is just a step forward. And if the government says that we will oppose the plea for same-sex marriage, that's not fair.
Okay.
You know, we all are fighting for our own individual expression.
Yes.
The way we want to live, the way we want to express ourselves. This is just the first step.
Zainab, what do you think about that? The government, the Supreme Court's thrown out Section 377, but the government says on same-sex marriage, no go yet. We're going to oppose it. That's what they say.
I think for that you need to really refer to the founding principles of the judgment, where you're talking about right to life, right to dignity and equality. The moment you remove us and from making us criminal to making us free citizens of India, free means not only trying to live a vegetative life where you're trying to have consensual sex, but taking into the next relation where you're trying to live life the fullest.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, if not everyone, a lot of people were intimidated by Section 377 to come and be into meaningful relationships. I think that is going to be a game changer among the people. For example, if people want to stay together in live-in relationships or in civil partnerships or marriage, the government should consider. But even if the government doesn't consider this, please remember this is a civil rights movement.
Yeah.
It's the communities, it's the affected people who have come and fought for their case. The government did not fight for our case. So I think it is now again the onus of us LGBT people to talk about same-sex or different-sex marriage and to take it to the next level of discussion.
So obviously
and you're not only restricting it at marriage.
So even the legal fight is not over. You know, that's the point I'm trying to make. I mean, one victory and then the next objective is already in sight. Rose, the fight is far from over. Today the breaking news that we've just brought to our viewers about the government opposing same-sex marriage for the moment only underscores and highlights the fact that this is a much larger fight than 377.
That is true. In almost every country where homosexuality has been legalized, the battle to win gay marriage rights took many years. But I think in our country, the battle to win gay marriage rights is going to be very, very short, because we are all very active players. We are vociferous. We use every opportunity we have to ensure rights are given to us. So I'm sure India will soon join the list, which is a very, very small list of countries where gay marriage is legalized. It's not a big move. It's not a big process.
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm working towards that.
I'm actually very glad to hear that this is going to be a very short fight and that this is a far more achievable target. Shambhavi, do you agree with that? That this is going to be a far more achievable. I mean, it took 72 years for 377 to be cast out of the window, even though this is a very young civil liberties movement. What about same-sex marriage? And like Shubhankar said, as far as workplace discrimination is concerned,
I think
are those going to be easier to get to?
I believe so. I think we have an advantage over, say, other nations who have fought this fight and won, for example, the US. We have all the knowledge that we've gained from other nations as well, from, other progressive judgments.
Yeah.
I think we can start pushing for the things that we need, because, 377 getting rid of it is really the lowest hanging fruit. And we are...
But it's been a lowest hanging fruit for a long time.
Forever. And I think now it's time to step up the game. We're not asking for just, okay, don't jhanko into our bedrooms and don't look at what we're doing. We're asking for marriage equality, we're asking for inheritance, we're asking for adoption, we're asking for, all policies. And why should we not jump into that right now? I think this is the best time to do it.
Strike while the iron is hot. The sentiment, even though it's sometimes artificial to say it, the sentiment is in, the country's attention is on this issue, Ankit, right now. So is there logic in saying strike while the iron is hot? This is the time for the movement to actually accelerate even more towards those other things?
The government's response is very expected. We didn't...
Yeah, no surprises.
No surprises at all. We didn't expect that they would say that, oh, now that you're legal, let's give you, equal rights in everywhere, right? But ever since this fight had begun, it was always the plan that first you do this, first you get legal, and then the next step is that we are coming for equal rights in every sphere that you can imagine. Because there is, and if you read today's judgment, it says very clearly the principle of equality has been reiterated by all 5 justices sitting there, and the judgment begins with the word justice, equal justice. So if you are already saying that you are equal, then how can you stop us from any sphere in life? life. It is just not fair, and it's not going to stand long in any case.
Shubhankar, what do you think? So workplace discrimination, same-sex marriage should be the next target for, you know, what has been a very well organized movement in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it's a two-way street. When you are ensured that there's equal rights and equal recognition under the law for queer individuals, then that automatically helps the society expand its thinking and become more open-minded. And when the society is more progressive and more accepting and more adaptive, that gives way for more equal and progressive rights, laws and regulations. So everybody benefits from that. So I think decriminalizing homosexuality is the very basic thing that our constitution could have done. So there's a lot more that we have to achieve now.
You know, Rose and Zainab, both of you are very much part of the movement itself. And, you know, we've heard your voices over the years as well. Zainab, to you first. Considering that this is such a young civil liberties movement and one that has been extremely focused, extremely organized, object-oriented, and today proven to, you know, achieve what it set out to do, is this movement now going to reconvene and, you know, identify what those next legal targets are going to be, whether it is, you know, workplace guidelines or same-sex marriage laws? Is that what's going to happen now?
I think there are two ways to look at it. One would be to look at what the fallout of the judgment is. For example, while there would be a lot of emphasis on marriage equality, but I think there is no time for any kind of complacency when it comes to looking at universal, you know, policies which will make place for anti-discrimination to be curbed. You know, we would like to see that first, because I think that is more doable, achievable, and I think it would be the right time. I mean, there were like a zillion consultations on Section 377, the roadmap. I think I've attended, I think, almost 100 in the last few years. But I think now that you have a definitive judgment, I think we need to do a sector-wide analysis. What is the, like, for example, I have no qualms in saying it took the National Human Rights Commission the year 2018, last month, to put together a core group on LGBT people when it is the only mandated quasi-government institution to protect the rights of all. You know, when it talks, they sat on it for so long saying that the court is looking at this thing. But I think now is the time for these kind of institutions to actually step up to the mandate given to them by the Supreme Court.
Very good
put
point.
Together very stringent. I don't want to be called a good mamu chakka hijra henceforth. I want the court to take notice of them, like the way the Supreme Court issued directives on the word Dalit. I want to make name calling an offense. I do not want to be used or addressed in this kind of a derogatory term starting today.
There's a reason why I called all of you today here on this show, and as we wrap up, it's just another reminder, because you know, when we celebrate in this country, I'm always going to be the one to say, celebrate by all means, but let's never take our eye off the ball. Let's never forget what it has actually taken to get here. I'm a person who has tracked the movement for many years. I have many friends in the community as well, so I have a vested interest in it as well, and therefore I can tell you that I'm going to continue to bring you all of your voices here on our channel, because I know that the fight is not over yet. I recognize that the bigger fight is still ahead for the community and for India at large. Zainab, Rose, Beta, Shambhavi, Shubhankar, Ankit, thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you on what has happened today, and I'm going to be with you all through what the next fight is going to be. Thank you all for joining me here on 5 Live.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.